everybody. Welcome back to another live. It's been a while since it's been just me, but I'm seeing already so many awesome questions come in. I have a good feeling about tonight. I have a good feeling we're going to get to some good questions. I feel like it's going to be helpful. So if this is a new experience for you out there, my name is Jenna Overbaugh. I am a therapist here at NoCD. I'm also the senior manager of community engagement, which means I'm in charge of our support groups. I'm in charge of a lot of our social media aspects of our community engagement. And you probably see a lot of me, even if you don't realize that you see me. So I'm here usually every Monday. It's been a while since I've not had a guest with me, so this is a little bit strange, but it's good. I feel good. So yeah, I'm actually going to be back tomorrow with two surprise guests, one OCD advocate and then another therapist who's not affiliated with NoCD, but is very good at what she does. So we have lots of really good things coming your way this week, especially. So if you have any questions, be sure to post them and I will get them. I won't be able to get to every question, but I will try to get to the questions that I feel like are general and could kind of apply to a lot of people at once. So really happy to be here. And let's just go ahead and get the dang thing started. I'm seeing a lot of real event OCD. So let's just go with that first. Let's just try to maybe two birds, one stone type of thing with this one. So I often see real event OCD defined as what past events mean about yourself / how they affect others. Are obsessions of fear of consequences of past actions also real event OCD? What are some tips for that? So for those of you who have not maybe heard of this yet, or maybe it's a new concept or new term, real event OCD kind of refers to when your OCD, when your obsessions and your compulsions latch onto something that actually happened. So maybe it was kind of this fleeting event or this really quick event or something that you're not really sure 100% of, which is very characteristic of OCD. And you just tend to want to review that situation again and again to try to become more sure. Usually there's some loophole in the kind of sequence of events that makes your OCD a little bit flustered, that provokes some anxiety, that provokes some doubt, and that makes you feel like you have to go off to the races to try to figure it out. So what past events mean about yourself / how they affect others? I mean, I don't know. Our obsessions of fear of consequences of past actions. I mean, sure, this doesn't seem too far different, but I don't necessarily think that OCD means anything about you. I think thoughts are just thoughts. And OCD is just the doubt disorder. And so it manifests itself in a lot of different ways with real event OCD in some people, with contamination in some ways, and other people it comes out in different manifestations. But at the end of the day, OCD is simply about doubt. It's our brains not being able to tolerate doubt. It's brains not being able to tolerate anxiety or a lack of closure or that loophole kind of in that sequence of events. It's our brains just wanting to be sure, just wanting to be 100% sure about something. I don't think that OCD means something about you and that what you get fixated on means something about you. I'm not sure if that's exactly what the question is asking, but I don't think that we need to kind of sophisticate OCD. I don't think we need to kind of make it fantastical. I mean, it just is what it is. And sometimes there's no explanation for it. Typically, OCD does latch on to things that are very uncertain for you. You'll also find that it latches on to the things that you value most. That's why these obsessions and these compulsions cause so much anxiety, because you care about these things so much and because the content is what you value. Dr. McGrath and I and other therapists here have often laughed about the fact that, like, we've never treated anybody who has OCD about something they don't care about, right? Like, everyone who presents with OCD, which is distressing and recurrent and takes up a lot of time in their day, it's always about something that they value. Otherwise, it probably would just be easily dismissed. It would be easily dismissed as a junk thought, as a bunk thought, not needing any kind of interpretation of significance or anything like that. So yeah, real events, OCD, just like any other type of OCD, doesn't say anything about you. If anything, it might say something about what you value. But again, it's the doubt disorder. So hopefully that's helpful. Dun-dun-dun. I usually don't just go down the row here, but these are pretty good. So Monica, when I'm feeling better and getting some relief from my OCD, I tend to get in the mindset of something bad will happen if you don't worry about it again. Is that considered a compulsion? I would very simply consider that to be an intrusive thought, right? That seems like something that you can't necessarily help. Oh, something bad is going to happen if you don't worry about that again. That seems like just an intrusive thought kind of popping in, maybe out of your awareness. Now, what you do with that thought, how you respond to it, could be a compulsion. So depending on what you do with it at that point, right? So something bad is going to happen if you don't worry about that again. There are really two ways that you could handle this, right? So you could either give into that compulsion, give into that intrusive thought and continue worrying about it and subscribe to this idea of, oh, okay, yeah, that's not worth it to me. I'm not going to take that chance on something bad happening. I need to be sure that something bad isn't going to happen. I need to protect myself somehow. I'm going to go and worry about that again. Or you resist that. You take that leap of faith. It's going to feel irresponsible. It's going to feel maybe like you're missing something. It's going to feel like you are, putting yourself maybe in the line of fire. Something bad might happen, but you're going to choose to resist that ritual anyways. You're going to try to be courageous and resist that ritual anyway, leaning into that doubt. Yep, something bad might happen. It's totally possible that as a result of me not worrying about that the way that I used to, something bad might happen. I don't know. I guess I'm going to go forward without worrying and I'm going to see what happens. By giving into that intrusive thought, by giving into that intrusive urge to go back to old patterns and continue to worry and give into those dysfunctional patterns of worry, it's going to feel really temporarily relieving. It's going to feel like, whew, as long as you're worried about this, you're going to protect yourself from something bad happening. Those are what we call kind of positive attributions of worry, where we have good things to say about worry, where we basically justify our worry. If I worry, I'll prevent something bad from happening. If I worry, I'll feel better. If I'm not worrying, then I'm not being careful or I'm not caring enough about X, Y, or Z. If you really, truly want to break that pattern and break that habit, it will require you to take that leap of faith, to kind of put that on the back burner, leave it unanswered, and try not to engage with it. You can become aware of that intrusive thought that just came up. Yep, I just had that thought. I just had a thought that something bad might happen if I don't worry about that. I'm treating that like an obsession. And you continue to move on with your day. And if you're confused about, well, how do I move on with my day? Ask yourself, what would I have been doing before I had that thought? What would I have been doing had I not had that thought? Would I just continue hanging out with my friends? Would I continue getting ready for work? Whatever it was that you would have continued doing or would be doing anyway before you had that intrusive thought, just try to keep doing that. And try to have the mentality of, yep, something bad very well might happen. It could or it couldn't. I don't know. And I'm not going to do anything to control that. I'm just going to, go about my day and see what happens. I don't know. There's a lot of uncertainty in life and I don't know. It's going to feel irresponsible. Like I said, it's going to feel scary. It's going to feel like that leap of faith, but eventually you will move on. You will get used to that feeling. You will eventually have that understanding of, wow, I didn't actually need to engage in all that worrying in the first place. I could still move on with my day. And hopefully you'll learn, right? Like hopefully you'll come to find out maybe something bad didn't actually end up happening. Maybe that bad thing never happened, and you suddenly then offer yourself the learning opportunity of, I don't need to worry. I don't need to put myself through that in order to prevent something bad from happening. Furthermore, I wonder if you could open yourself up to alternate possibilities. Maybe more good things happen as a result of you not worrying. Maybe you get ready faster, so you have a little bit more time to hang out, with your dog before you go to work or something. Maybe you are actually present in the moment, so you feel happier, and the worry didn't kind of like suck out that mental energy from you, right? So, it'll feel irresponsible. It'll feel like you're missing something. But I challenge you to try that and see what happens. And that might be a small version of kind of that backdoor spike that we often talk about in the OCD community. So the backdoor spike is simply this very predictable pattern that the OCD tries to pull whenever someone does start to feel relief or does start to feel better in therapy, especially. The OCD will start to kind of, that doubt, that obsessive doubt, and those urges to do these compulsions and these rituals will try to latch on to that progress. Are you sure? If you are actually starting to feel better, if you're actually not having anxiety around little kids being half naked in their swimsuits, what does that actually mean about you, right? You're not really that much of a worrier anymore. Are you sure that that's safe? It can just make you doubt everything. So call it by its name. Just thanks, but no thanks. In fact, hey, you're welcome to come along with me, anxiety. You're welcome to come along with me, obsessive thoughts. But I'm not going to do anything to give in to you. I'm not going to do anything to make you better. I'm not going to do anything to make it worse. You're welcome to come along with me, but I have plans. I have plans. This is what I'm doing today, regardless of your presence. So hopefully, Monica, that is helpful. Dun, dun. You guys are giving each other some pretty good feedback. I like this question. I just posted about this on my Instagram a couple of days ago. Do intrusive thoughts go away with recovery? So intrusive thoughts are normal, are very common. We've done a lot of research to show that intrusive thoughts are normal. In fact, I'm going to try to multitask here. There's actually an article that I have that I share sometimes with people in treatment about, it's called Surprise, Intrusive Thoughts Are Normal. And I'll try to find some for you guys that I can actually go through and start to list off. But essentially, intrusive thoughts, we've done research to determine that everyone in the world has intrusive thoughts. Some of the statistics that we get back are like 95 to 99% of individuals who do not have a mental health background necessarily, like they're from all different backgrounds, all over the world. They all say that they have struggled or experienced intrusive thoughts. Intrusive thoughts simply being, or intrusive experiences simply being things that come in to their awareness, seemingly out of their control. They might be persistent, they might be recurrent. They're very kind of out of nowhere. These individuals did not conjure these thoughts up or conjure up these experiences, but rather they just kind of came in outside of their awareness, almost like they were being intruded by this thought. And so, and I think even I laugh because I think 95 to 99%, I think that 1 to 5% is probably lying when they say that they haven't had those experiences. I think that they're either lying because they are afraid of being honest in that setting and saying that they've had those uncomfortable thoughts, or I think that they just didn't understand the question. So with that said, I think it's pretty dang safe to say that most people in the world, if not every single person in the world, experiences intrusive experiences. And so the answer is no, intrusive thoughts are not going to go away. We do not have anything that even comes close to being able to just like go in your brain, flip off that switch, and like no more will you ever have an intrusive thought. No more will you ever have a thought that comes in out of your awareness, out of your control, that is ego dystonic or inconsistent with your values. We don't have anything like that. And so it would be great if we did. It would be really, really great if we did. If we could just take a pill and suddenly all of our neurological junk thoughts were gone. It would be great if we could just like go in and zap out all the bad thoughts and just get rid of all of them and just have all goodness up there. But unfortunately, that doesn't exist. And so what comes closest to being able to manage these intrusive thoughts and hopefully eventually get them to become less vivid, less troublesome, less intrusive, and help you all have a better relationship with these thoughts. The next best thing to zapping them away completely, which like I said, doesn't exist, is exposure and response prevention. So exposure and response prevention, otherwise known as ERP, is the gold standard treatment for OCD and anxiety. And in order to do that treatment successfully, what it requires of you basically is to essentially expose yourself to these anxiety-provoking situations, these intrusive experiences, whether they're thoughts, ideas, images, impulses, urges, or feelings. And you will be tasked with having to reduce or resist the rituals or the compulsions or the safety behaviors that you would typically do otherwise to make yourself feel better about these intrusive experiences. And so the answer, the tall and short of it is, no, we're not going to get these intrusive thoughts to go away, because not even a totally functional non-OCD person doesn't have intrusive thoughts. So that can't be our status quo. That can't be our target. That can't be our goal, because it's completely unreasonable and just not realistic. What we can aim for is to have a better relationship with those thoughts, to have a different understanding of how they all work in our brains, and a different relationship as far as, I think we can go from this attitude of threat to, okay, this is a mental game. I'm going to treat this like an obsession, and I'm in control of my behaviors. I'm in control of how I respond to this. It's up to me what I do with this. And so, we're not going to get rid of them completely. And I don't want anyone coming into treatment to have this strategy of, I want to get rid of my intrusive thoughts. If someone does, very understandably so, come into treatment with that being their strategy, I want to get rid of my thoughts. I totally understand why someone would want to when they don't have the context for kind of how they all work and all those things. I can understand completely why someone would want to just get rid of their thoughts. That would be so wonderful. But we have to have the strategy instead of accepting that they're going to be there. And that has to be our target. Our target has to be acceptance. That doesn't mean that we have to like them. It doesn't mean that we have to enjoy them and love them and snuggle them. It just means that we have to accept them, that those are there. And by nature of accepting them, we make OCD less strong. We aren't necessarily chasing it away anymore. I always think of it kind of like a bully. The OCD is often kind of clinically and in other ways described as a bully. It's kind of like that as far as this analogy goes. So if think about it, if your OCD was a bully, right? And you were like yelling at this bully who was, just taunting you at school. I just want them to go away. I just want them to go away. I just want them to leave me alone. I just wish you would leave me alone. Just please go away. That totally reinforces the bully. It gives the bully power. It further engages the bully. It fully lets the bully know that he's got his teeth sunk into you and that he's getting a rise out of you. Versus if you kind of have the attitude of like, what's up, buddy? Like, I don't know. I don't know really what you want from me, but I don't have much to offer you. I'm just not really going to engage one way or the other. I see you, but I'm not falling for that. Like, I'm just, thanks, but no thanks. He's probably not going to waste that much time with you because there's not much that he can get from that, right? There's not much that this bully can get from you because you're not willing to engage in it. I think of OCD also, another analogy that I use with my members at NoCD is I think of OCD being like the best / worst arguer ever. All of you probably, I can know at least one person out there who just wants to argue for the sake of arguing. Like they would literally argue with you about whether the sky was green or blue or whatever. They have no intention of ever letting you win. They have no intention of ever actually letting you speak or hearing you out. They have no intention of actually wavering in their own response or in their own perspective. They just kind of want to argue for the sake of arguing because they enjoy it. OCD is kind of like that. So in giving you these intrusive thoughts and kind of like urging you to participate, it's not ever really going to have the intention of going away. It's never going to have the intention of leaving you alone. You have to decide how much or how little you participate in that argument. So that person and that OCD, that's always going to be its tendency. Our brains are always going to have the tendency to give us these bunker neurological junk thoughts every once in a while. It's up to you guys how much or how little you participate in that debate. So, thinking back to the debate example, like if OCD was on the stage and OCD was inviting you guys, every time it gives you an intrusive thought, it's basically inviting you up to the debate stage, right? And so many times, a lot of you probably participate in that debate by wanting him to go away or by justifying it, by doing some type of compulsion, by trying to logic your way out of OCD. And you may not know it, but you are up there on the debate stage with the microphone in your hand and you are engaging in a full-on debate. Mind you, with a person or with this entity with OCD who has no business, who has no intention on ever letting you let them falter. Like they were never going to let you win anyway. But you're still there exerting all of your energy, exerting all of your effort, trying to get the leg up, trying to one up the OCD. And it's just, that's not the way to go about it. How you actually win that argument, how you actually win that battle or win the war is by not even stepping onto the stage. Hear the invitation. I hear your invitation and I'm not participating in that. I'm walking away. That's where your element of control comes in. And so they're going to continue to be there. Intrusive thoughts are going to be there. It's up to you how much or how little you participate in them. And like I said, by nature of you doing these compulsions, by doing the things that we do to try to get rid of the OCD or get rid of the intrusive thoughts, we are participating in that debate. We're up there on the debate stage and we are full on trying to argue with this entity that's never had any intention of letting us have any say in the matter. All right. Yeah, you guys are giving some good feedback here. I get so caught up in my own little spiel. All these comments go by and it's nice to just take a second to read everything. OCD in remission. So OCD in remission just means that you are at a place in your recovery where you're experiencing fewer symptoms. And it's kind of like embers in a fire, I would say. Like it's not completely gone. And I don't know that my opinion is that OCD doesn't ever completely go away. Back to my previous point about intrusive thoughts never really going away completely. But remission kind of implies that it's manageable now, that, we've done some work on it, and that we're at the point where it's a little bit more manageable than it once was. So I thought that was helpful. Emily. My intrusive thoughts are always terrible in the early morning and I have a lot of breakdowns. By the afternoon, I'm fine as if I don't even have OCD. Is that common/normal? So I've heard this a lot about the morning. I've heard it a lot about the afternoon. I've heard it a lot about nighttime, especially. So there's a million explanations as to why. I guess my best advice for this would be not to try to obsess too much about the why, like, oh my gosh, trying to strategize about why and why is it so much worse in the mornings and da-da-da. I do think that some of that is, you could, as long as you're doing that in a problem solving way, like I think that's great. But I do think that also can become kind of repetitive. And I just don't want it to turn into, which it often does in these situations, like a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? So once we kind of witness a pattern, like, oh, I've noticed my anxiety being really bad the past couple of days in the mornings, then you start to kind of expect it, right? Consciously or not, whether you're aware of it or not, you tend to expect it. And so you're looking for it. So we are all victim of, and we all have something called the confirmation bias. So we all look for things to actively validate or support ideas that we already have set in our brains. So if we're looking for something, essentially we're going to find it. So if we are looking for those symptoms in the morning and we're very anxious about the mornings and we go to bed anxious thinking about the morning and we have a lot of rituals about the morning because we know we have a lot of anxiety in the morning, you're going to be on the lookout for anxiety in the morning and you're probably going to find it. And so same with, like, if this is in the afternoon, if this is after work, if this is in the nighttime or whatever, I would just be on the lookout for anyone in this situation to not make it this self-fulfilling prophecy, right? Like, maybe I am going to be nervous tomorrow morning when I wake up. Maybe I'm not. I don't know. And I'm not going to go looking for it. Again, having more of that acceptance mentality. Yep, I'm going to be a little bit anxious this morning. Yep, I'm a little bit anxious this morning. Further, you can even lean into that, right? You can even kind of invite it in or welcome it in. So I hope I'm super anxious this morning. Just bring it on. Bring it on, bring it on, bring it on. I hope that I am the most anxious I've ever been tomorrow morning. Like, bring it on, OCD, let's go. I know that can kind of seem a little bit backwards, but I used to struggle when I was struggling with postpartum OCD. I was always... oh my gosh, it was always really difficult for me, the period of time in between when I would get my son from daycare and the 2 or 3 hours between my son being home and my husband getting home, because I was alone with them, right? So I was alone with my son, and that was a really big trigger for me. So like I would build myself up before in a ritualistic way, in a not good way. I found myself giving into little avoidances. Like I would stay a little bit longer in my house before I'd go to get my son, because I was putting that time off. That was anticipating being in anxiety mode. I would stay on my phone longer in the car, like just avoiding going and getting him from daycare because I just avoided that time so much. That switched when I started to do my own exposure therapy around it. I had to stop doing a couple things. I had to stop asking my husband when he would be home from work. So I have still to this day, 3.5 years later, I still have no idea when my husband comes home from work, because it's not good for me to know that information. Because I tend to just like look at the clock and count down the hours. And I started to just lean into it, right? Like, I hope I'm super anxious today. I hope that I have a bunch of intrusive thoughts of awful things happening when Eli and I are home alone together. I hope Tate, my husband, works super late tonight, because I want anxiety. I want this, because these experiences are what are going to make me better in the long run. They're going to be difficult right now, but this is what I want, something challenging. I want a challenge. So a couple of suggestions here. I know I'm kind of all over the place, but one, I would try to approach it with more of an acceptance versus I need to get rid of this anxiety in the morning. Because chances are, as long as you're trying to get rid of it, you're going to be on the lookout for it. Once you're on the lookout for it, you're going to find it. And then it just becomes a big thing. The second suggestion here, and again, this is relevant if you have this happening at night, in the afternoon, around a certain situation, whatever. Where you're kind of like tiptoeing around something and you're like living in your own haunted house type of situation, where you're just tiptoeing and you're waiting for this thing to strike you in every corner. Second suggestion I would give is to try to be aware and just like shine light on any subtle rituals that you might be doing around the morning, right? Like I was doing a lot of rituals around the period of time in between going and getting my son from daycare and when my husband would come home. I was constantly asking him when he was home how close he was to home. I was avoiding leaving my house to go and get my son. I was in the car avoiding further on my phone to go and get him. And there were just a lot of things that I was doing that weren't helpful for me and for my anxiety recovery. So shine light on any of the rituals that you're doing about the morning. And third, try to lean into it. Like, I hope I have a lot of anxiety this morning. Bring it on. Bring it on. I hope I have a ton of anxiety tomorrow morning. And really try to lean into it. And still ask yourself, like, what would I be doing on a morning if I didn't have anxiety? Like, if anxiety wasn't part of the equation, if OCD wasn't part of the equation, and if my intrusive thoughts weren't here, what would I be doing? Would I be going to the gym? Would I be going for a walk with my dogs? Would I be up making breakfast because I love to make breakfast? I would challenge you to do those things anyway. Challenge yourself to do those things anyway and bring those thoughts along with you. Invite them to come along with you. Hey, intrusive thoughts, you're welcome to come with me. You can either be here or not be there. I don't really care one way or the other. I'm not going to do anything to engage you. I'm not going to call attention to you. You're welcome to come with me, but I'm going to go and do this now. I have plans. You're welcome to come with me, but I have plans. So hopefully, Emily, that was helpful. Guys, we have so many people here right now. Holy cow. See a lot of things about trichotillomania. Just really quickly, it's very commonly comorbid with obsessive compulsive disorder. There are really good treatment modalities out there. I would check out, let me make sure I'm going to give you guys the right one. So Nathan Peterson, he was there. He was on here a couple of weeks ago with me, maybe 2 weeks ago. And he just released a new self-guided online BFRB course. So that's BFRB means body-focused repetitive behavior, which trichotillomania is one of them. So Nathan Peterson, he's an OCD and anxiety therapist, but he specializes in a lot of different things. So actually, if you guys just go to Instagram, I will post his Instagram in the chat or in the comment boxes. But on Instagram, he's at OCD and Anxiety Online. And he just released a kind of self-guided course on BFRB's body-focused repetitive behaviors. Obviously, working with a therapist is great. But sometimes if you don't have access to therapy, if you're in between sessions or if you're after your therapy experience and you need something, if finances are an issue for you, he actually has an OCD course and also a BFRB course. So I'm looking online right now. It seems like the online BFRB program, which would be for hair pulling and skin picking, it's $197, which, depending on your own kind of where you're coming from, that could be more manageable than treatment, could be still really expensive. But anyways, what you guys get, you get access for life. You're taught by Nathan Peterson himself. You get 21 engaging videos, learning and applying the treatment for all body-focused repetitive behaviors like hair pulling and skin picking. And it's all evidence-based treatment models. So there are worksheets and assignments. There's a support group. And as cool as that is for hair pulling and skin picking, he has one for OCD as well. So a really great self-guided course from Nathan Peterson. Yeah, I think he also has just some general previews too for his courses. I know he does at least for the OCD one. So maybe he would also have some previews for the BFRB course. That would be good for you guys to check out. So another really great self-guided course. If you're not able, obviously, to have an OCD therapist like at NoCD, Kimberly Quinlan also has a really great self-guided course. I guess now is probably a good idea too, while I'm kind of browsing here and looking for more really awesome questions. NoCD, I'm telling you guys about these wonderful self-guided courses. It's best to do this with a therapist, but obviously we know that that's not always possible or accessible for people. But if you do want that additional accountability and you do want more of that structured therapy experience, we're obviously here for you guys here at NoCD. So we work with people who have OCD, who think they might have OCD. You do not need like a referral. You can totally do this completely on your own. So go ahead and go to www.nocd.com. We will work with you. You'll get a free 15-minute phone call with our care team, who is absolutely wonderful. They'll get you connected with a therapist in your area. We are available in all 50 states in the United States. We're available in the United Kingdom, Australia, and also Ontario, Canada. So we're always working on expanding. We're always trying to make these services more accessible to people. We do self-pay. We offer payment plans. If finances are of concern for any of you out there, we can work with you with your finances. As far as a payment plan goes, and we also offer free support groups. So whenever it comes to, even if you're not involved in NoCD therapy services, so you don't even have to be involved with NoCD whatsoever, they're completely free. So our support groups are completely free, completely accessible to you. And like I said, you do not have to be involved in NoCD therapy services or therapy services in general to participate. So all you need to do is actually just go to our app. So our app is free on the marketplace. Just download the app on the marketplace and then you'll see it. I can actually show you guys right here. We offer, whoa, my phone is super dark. If you just open your NoCD app place, woo, it's really bright. And you just scroll down here. It's that blue screen. It's really bright, but hopefully you guys can see it. So it's just that blue screen, that blue little image right there on the front of your NoCD app. So you can go ahead, introducing online support groups. They're all virtual meetings, virtual Zoom meetings. They're all led by a NoCD therapist. We have lots of different groups. We have just general managing OCD groups. We have really fun ones too. We have like a creativity for OCD group where people are getting there and they're making t-shirts about their OCD. They're doing poetry, writing songs, drawing, painting. We have a goal setting group. We have a relapse prevention group for maintaining recovery. We have a young adults group, a students with OCD group. We also have multiple support groups each week about, there are 4 loved ones. So if you are a supporter or if you have a family member or a spouse or just a loved one who you would want to attend that group or maybe who needs a little bit of support themselves, we have groups for them as well. So definitely check them out. They're running Monday through Friday, multiple times a day, and we're going to be working on some weekend groups as well for you guys. So like I said, they're completely free, no gimmicks, no nothing, and you do not have to be in therapy services at all with NoCD or elsewhere. They're just completely free and available for you guys to connect with other people who have OCD just like you. And I run the group Wednesday at 7 p.m. Central. So if you want to come and say hi, you can come to the Wednesday group and sign up for the Wednesday group there. You guys will get a little link in your emails and you'll go from there. Alrighty. Bed feet. Does ERP work for anxiety without OCD? So one of my biggest passions and one of my favorite topics to talk about is anxiety or generalized anxiety disorder versus OCD. I've talked to a lot of other OCD professionals about this, a lot of other anxiety professionals in the field about this, and there's a pretty big consistent message across all of us that it's like potato. There are some very significant differences, and obviously they're 2 different diagnoses, and there are reasons for that. And so they're different, and they are different. But exposure and response prevention is also very effective for anxiety. So if you have generalized anxiety disorder, that's one set of diagnostic criteria. If you have obsessive compulsive disorder, it's different. But a lot of the underlying mechanisms are very, very similar. So in generalized anxiety disorder, your worries or your occupations tend to be very general, kind of about a lot of different things, but about nothing at the same time. They're kind of just more general, more realistic worries, like finances, the health of loved ones, the future, something bad happening. OCD tends to be very specific. It tends to be about events that aren't as real life or aren't as plausible. But there's definitely some areas of confusion there. Like, what about relationship OCD? What about real event OCD? What really is the difference between rumination and worry? What's the difference? And so we're seeing there is a lot of confusion and there's a lot of overlap. And so at the end of the day, I think where a lot of us professionals stand is like, they function exactly the same, right? Like at the end of the day, what we want you guys to realize with ERP is we want you guys to only be as anxious as the facts warrant. We want you to not let anxiety or OCD or intrusive experiences dictate decisions for you. We want your values to be what dictate decisions for you, not anxiety, not intrusive experiences. And so exposure and response prevention, of course, is going to work the same for anxiety, even if it's more general and it is under that GAD umbrella versus obsessive compulsive disorder. Now, in the research, generally, exposure and response prevention doesn't have as significant of a research base. It's not as effective for generalized anxiety disorder as it is for OCD. But the reason for that is because of the lack of specificity in the trigger when it comes to GAD. So like I was saying, in GAD, the triggers are not as specific, right? So it might be, I'm just really worried about something bad happening, just as an example. Whereas with OCD, it's like, I'm afraid that I hit that person 7 years ago when I was backing out of the grocery store. It's very specific. And so it's much easier to do exposure and response prevention and to brainstorm that and to apply exposures to that because it's very specific, it's trigger. So you could easily have that person go back to that parking lot, practice driving exposures, read articles about hit and runs, read articles about people who have been hit by cars and died in their area, so on and so forth. If the trigger is, I'm just afraid of bad things happening, it's kind of hard to do exposures around that because the trigger is not very specific. So that's really where it gets tricky. When it comes to obsessive compulsive disorder, it tends to be, you do ERP with both of them, which are, ERP is under the cognitive behavioral therapy umbrella. When it comes to OCD, we tend to do more, we whisper like cognitive behavioral therapy. We do a little bit of cognitive work, but not a lot, but we do a lot of behavioral work with OCD. With more generalized anxiety disorder, we might do a little bit of the opposite. So we might do a little bit of behavioral work, but we focus more on the cognitive work. But at the end of the day, ERP is really necessary. In my opinion, it's the meat and potatoes. You cannot get better from OCD for sure. And you cannot get better, I don't think, from your anxiety unless there's an element, whether it's like super, super formal and structured and rigid, or if it's just kind of more on the behavioral expectation or behavioral experiment kind of route. You have to be doing some element of exposure work in order to get well. All right, I'm going to take one more question. Just really quickly, Elle, about groups. So can you tell us what you talk about in groups? What are we expected to share? So when you go to sign up for the groups, it will say that there are a couple expectations that we expect you to use your real name. Like when you sign on to Zoom, it will say like to type your name or whatever. And then it will ask you to have your camera on. That's mostly just for safety precautions to make sure that like we don't have anyone kind of creeping in there. especially if we were to get like a teenager in there or anything, like we just want to make sure that everyone is at least there and willing to share their faces. Even if you have to like share your face and then like turn it off, like at least let the therapist kind of see your face just so they know that you're like not creeping, and that you're an actual like participant of the group. And so I run that support group program. So I'll tell you right now, I manage all the therapists as far as their support group work goes. And I've told all of the therapists that I want to make sure everyone who goes to group has a warm experience, that I don't want anyone to feel called out. I don't want anyone to feel pressured. I don't want anyone to feel like they left and had a bad experience because they were called out for not participating or their camera off or whatever. So that was the set expectation. When you go into group, it'll take about 5 minutes for the therapist to get started because we wait in case anyone's late or whatever. And then the therapist will kind of just say hello, do a nice little welcome. Generally, the way that groups work at that point is we go around and we share like a minute or two of just a brief intro, maybe like where you're from, what your name is, and kind of what your OCD is about or what brings you to group. You could share as much, like up to 2 or 3 minutes if you want, just depending on the group size so that you get enough time to go to everybody. Or you can just, I've been totally fine with people saying, hey, my name is Jenna Overbaugh. I'm from Wisconsin. I found these support groups the other day. This is my first time. I'm really nervous right now, but I have OCD and I'm just wanting to learn more. It's totally fine. So definitely as far as content, you don't have to talk much. I would encourage you though to give it a try. I think you'll witness other people speaking, and I think you'll feel the good energy that's there. I think you'll feel that support. Everyone's always been super supportive of each other. Everyone's been super welcoming and just really great. And so I would encourage you to go and give it a try. If it's not your jam, then you can exit. There's no one holding you there. So definitely give it a try. We're therapists. We totally understand that people are going to be a little bit anxious their first time. So we're not going to like call attention to you or whatever. At the very least, if someone is at group and they're not turning their camera on, they're straight up not participating, and it's been like 2 or 3 groups, I might Zoom message them privately and just say like, hey, what's up? Like, hoping that you can participate today. Like, please let me know if there's anything else we can do, but we really do need you to participate. And again, guys, like that's mostly a safety thing. Like we want to make sure that there's not some strange person like who doesn't have OCD, who's just kind of creeping on the group. Like we do want to just make sure that everyone's who's there and accessing the group actually is a legitimate participant. So as long as you can establish that, then you can kind of bow out and just listen and open up at your own pace. That's totally fine too. So yeah, I feel like that went by really, really fast. But I'm going to be back tomorrow. So make sure, make sure you come back tomorrow. How many people go to the groups? It's totally different. Totally depends. Some groups have 5, some groups have 20 or 28. It totally depends. I will say that the evening groups probably have a little bit more people just because it's a hotter time for people after school, after work or whatever. But they're growing. But we're also going to be offering more. So hopefully by offering more groups, we disperse them a little bit. So yeah, they're really awesome. And our goal with the groups is to offer like a buffet type of situation. Like when it comes to groups, it's really difficult for every single person to kind of have the best experience, right? Like some people like big groups, some people like small groups, some people like more of just the support. Sometimes people like the education. It's really difficult to please everybody with one type of style. So our goal is to offer a ton of different groups. You pick a bunch and see what works for you. Like go in, try a bunch of them, see what works for you. If you don't like one facilitator style, try another one. I think we have like 25 or 30 groups at this point. But yeah, oh my gosh, you guys give it a try. I have chills. It's so great. These groups are so great. It's especially great when you go and like it's familiar people, and that you go one week and then the next week it's the same people, maybe a couple new people, and you get to learn their stories. And Oh my gosh, it's just so wonderful. No amount of therapy will be able to provide you with what a support group can provide you. And it's just so incredible that they're free. There's no gimmicks. It's not like you get the first 2 free and then you have to pay. Like, trying really hard to keep it free for you guys. We're trying really hard to just offer them indefinitely so that you guys don't have to pay. And so that you guys don't have to be in therapy in order to benefit from them. So give them a try and come say hi on Wednesday. Come say hi to my group on Wednesday. Wednesdays at 7, go sign up. You can sign up for the groups again on your NoCD app. Download the NoCD app for free on your phone. There's a link right there, that little blue right on the front screen. Otherwise, you can go to www.nocd.com/support-groups. Join the group. Join the group. Come to my group. Come to my group. Come to my group and message me and say that, hey, I'm from the webinar. Like, I'm really scared right now. I totally will understand if you just say one sentence and you show your camera for 5 seconds just to make sure that I know you're not a creep from some other country. It's so worth it, you guys. It's so worth it. Give yourself the opportunity. Yeah. Groups are amazing. Everyone's saying, everyone give it a try. Wednesday at 7, Wednesday at 7, Wednesday at 7. Come say hi. Okay, cool. That's my challenge for all of you guys. I want you to try the groups. Try the groups, try the groups. Super cool. You will not regret it. You will not regret it. Oh my gosh, you'll be like so glad that you challenged yourself with that. And what there's no other, what a better place to challenge yourself, right? No, you do not have to be American to join. What a better place to challenge yourself with an exposure like that. Like, if you're scared, totally get it. It's understandable. Doing new things is scary. Putting yourself out there is scary. What a better place to challenge yourself than with a NoCD therapist who signed up to do the support group because we love doing support groups, while you're with a bunch of other people who have OCD, who are probably also scared to be there. Like, least threatening environment to challenge yourselves with. Okay. Clearly, I'm excited about the support groups. So come and say hi to any of the support groups, but especially if you want to be in mine, Wednesdays at 7. I will be back tomorrow with 2 guests, 1 OCD therapist. Yes, your son can join, of course. We just make sure we have, if your son is younger and they're the one who has OCD, we have a students with OCD group. We also have a young adults group. If your son is the one who is supporting you and you have OCD, like he's supporting you, he's kind of like the support person or the family member, and you have OCD, we have support groups for family members. Support groups for supporters, I guess is what you could say. Yeah, son can totally join, 100%. Cool. Good night, everybody. I welcome you all to join the support groups. I welcome you to come back tomorrow. I'll be back for answering more questions. And I will see you some other time. I wish you guys the best of luck in your recovery. Good night.